Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today. In this episode, I'm really pleased to be talking to Sue Rogers, the Director of Support, Information and Research at Meningitis Now. Thank you so much, Sue, for joining us. Meningitis Now started as a local support group and was the first meningitis group in the UK raising funds for research. Since then, it has come from strength to strength and become a national charity and has invested millions of pounds in early stage research. The charity provides a wide range of support for those affected by meningitis, from its nurse-led helpline to peer support and much more. So I thought today, Sue, to start off with, I know that raising awareness of meningitis is a really important part of the work that Meningitis Now does. And one of the common themes we see in cases we are involved in is that symptoms of meningitis are not recognised quickly enough, and that can have catastrophic consequences. I wondered if you could therefore talk a little bit about the signs and symptoms of meningitis and what someone should do if they think they have meningitis.
Yeah, thank you, Amy. It is a challenge because the disease will often present in different ways in different people
Mhm.
and is very like flu-like symptoms in our adolescent community, can be like a hangover.
Okay.
So often can be misjudged for something that is far less serious. The important things to watch out for are really high raised temperature, cold hands and feet, avoiding the light, not liking the light at all, neck stiffness, vomiting, diarrhea, and in later stages, and some and not all people will develop a rash. And
Okay.
it's often being talked about meningitis and the meningitis rash. But what we're seeing over the years of mutation of the disease, not everyone gets the rash, and often the rash is linked to septicemia, which is then much further into the disease pathway.
Mm.
So not waiting for that. But the important thing is if you've got somebody that is showing those symptoms with fast deterioration, just get help.
Okay, and that would be calling 111 or
Yeah, calling
999.
111, 999, just seek support. And if that young person or that person impacted by potentially by meningitis is not getting better, and you know that person, a parent knows their children, your family. If you're not convinced that it's what they say, keep going. Don't be afraid to go back and say they're getting worse. Don't leave it for hours and hours because the progression of the disease can be very fast.
That makes sense. Um, and obviously there are vaccinations available, and the charity runs a number of awareness campaigns, including around vaccinations. I wondered if you'd like to talk us through perhaps some of those campaigns and what they involve.
Yeah, thank you. So, vaccination is the most effective way to protect ourselves against any disease. But they're not 100% reliable, and we are not vaccinated for every strand of bacterial meningitis. So we have bacterial meningitis and we have viral meningitis, and it's bacterial meningitis that we'll be vaccinated against. So our most vulnerable groups, our young children, our adolescents, and our elderly people are vaccinated against meningitis, but not all strains.
Okay.
So one of those, a campaign that we've got active at the moment is No Plan B for Men B. So meningitis B, which is the most prevalent cause of bacterial meningitis at the moment, is vaccinated against in our small children, but not revisited in our adolescent or older young people. They get vaccinated against other strands of meningitis, but not Men B.
Right.
So one of the campaigns we have going at the moment is to increase the awareness of that and to challenge government around a plan B for Men B.
Okay. And I know you've got a petition going in relation to that, and that's available on your website to sign if anyone wants to.
Absolutely. So anybody that would like to support the petition to have vaccination for men be revisited, you can find that link on our website, and we can also pop it on the slides at the end of the podcast.
Fantastic. I've signed that, so hopefully we can raise some awareness of that, and hopefully more people will sign that too.
That's amazing. Thank you, Amy.
Obviously, the charity is not just about awareness raising, it also provides a huge amount of support to people impacted by meningitis. And I wondered if you could perhaps tell us a bit about what support is available and how people can access it.
Yeah, so we offer a range of support for anybody impacted by meningitis. So that could be the person that's had the disease, whether that's bacterial or viral. It could be a parent, it could be a relative, it could be a partner. And we offer that through a range of different things. So we have our community support officers. So they are trained staff across the UK that will work one-to-one with families or people impacted by the disease to help them to navigate their pathway back to their new normal. So that can be around finances, it can be around housing support, it can be around emotional support and signposting to other services. We also have our B&A team, so that's our Believe and Achieve. So this is for our young people aged 11 to 25, and we offer light touch one-to-one support through a trained youth worker, but also connection points, so digital and face-to-face sessions, which is really important for young
Mhm.
people to see other young people and connect through their disease
Absolutely.
experience. And we also run a grants-based system. So anybody that's been impacted by the disease that needs financial support, whether that's for bereavement, so that could be memorials or costs towards a funeral. Unfortunately, we don't expect to lose our young people early. Funerals are not a cheap thing, as we know. And so we offer financial support towards the cost of funerals or memorials. We also support things like counselling, EMDR, which is a form of trauma-based counselling, equipment, adaptive equipment, wheelchair support, or people that want to try new sports, new experiences following their disease. And then we also have obviously our fundraising, that some people just want to get into fundraising as part of their recovery pathway, and others want to get into volunteering ambassador work, so going out into universities and student awareness days and raising awareness around prevention of the disease. So we have a plethora of things that people can get involved with. And what we find is that people come into the organisation at all different points. So
Mhm.
some people come in raising funds to start with, and then will go into support, or the children may go into B&A, or they might go into volunteering. And we morph and flex to meet the needs of that person along their journey.
That's so brilliant to hear because from what you're saying, anybody who's been impacted by meningitis can contact you at any time during their journey. So it's not a kind of somebody needs to get in touch immediately after it's happened. It might be that some time passes and then they start to realize that they need some support.
Absolutely. I mean, for an example, we have a nurse-led helpline. So we have some real specialist nurses, probably some of the most knowledgeable nurses around meningitis and the disease in the country. And giving examples around that, we had a gentleman ring the other day who said, could I have a bit of a brain injury because I've had meningitis?
Okay.
And one of the nurses said, yeah, that's a really common side effect. And he said, oh, I had it 40 years ago, he said, and I've been struggling for 40 years. And suddenly I saw something and read something and thought, that's what it is. I had meningitis as a child and I've really struggled throughout. So he sort of came into our service 40 years post disease. And then on the same day, we had a mum that rang whose 32-year-old son was in ITU with bacterial meningitis, and she's just saying, I don't know what to do. I don't know what this
Mhm.
disease is. What do I need to expect? How can I help? What do I need to say to healthcare professionals? And our nurses are able to support people through and navigate people through that pathway of recovery. So our kind of motive is we're here when you need us for as long as you need us.
That's so lovely to hear because we see from our clients that meningitis not only impacts the person who's had the disease, but also it can impact the whole family. So it's brilliant to hear that there's such a wide range of support available for anyone who's been impacted, really.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be family. It could be somebody in the workplace. So you could have a colleague that's been
Yeah.
impacted by the disease, somebody in a sports team that's been impacted by the disease. We are still open to support those people too.
That's brilliant. And obviously, you mentioned volunteering. It is a big part of what the charity does. Is there anything else that you'd perhaps like to highlight in terms of the impact that volunteering can have?
Yeah, so without volunteers, our message is much, much weaker. We have nearly 200 volunteers across the UK working directly in their communities, raising awareness around the disease,
Mm.
be that through student campaigns, small talks, short talks, community groups. We've been really focusing on moving towards a sixth form community, so
Okay.
trying to get those young people vaccinated as best we can before they hit a time when there's an increased risk of the disease. Uh, People really, most of our volunteers, probably nearly all of our volunteers, have a lived experience. You don't
Mm.
have to have a lived experience, but actually they're singing from the heart. They understand the disease. They have that experience. They're able to connect with people in a real, true life. They could be people who've bereaved and lost loved ones to the
Mm.
disease. They could be people who've survived the disease but have really life-changing um, issues because, lots of people will have limb difference and limb loss as a result of the disease. Deafness is very high
Mm.
in people that have had bacterial meningitis. And so it's very important to give those people who have a lived experience the voice at the forefront of our organisation. So we very much try to work from a pace of, nothing about us without us, with our volunteers and our community ambassadors who just do the most amazing work. And we are forever grateful for those people because that's what makes us the brilliant charity that we are.
That's so lovely to hear and really inspiring, actually. And you mentioned sort of connection. That's from what I can gather, a really big theme across the charity and the work that the charity does. And it's great to hear that you're kind of able to connect different people who've had a lived experience of meningitis, and that can be really quite powerful.
Absolutely. So meningitis is a infrequent disease
Mm.
in the grand scheme of the disease field, but it's devastating.
Yeah.
So the chances of in the community meeting somebody who's perhaps had the similar journey to you might be quite limited. So what we're able to do as a charity is really connect lived experience people together. So an example of that, we've got a gentleman that we've been supporting who's got quite significant impact from the disease, particularly around sort of brain fog and acquired brain injury. And that's, he feels, has really impacted on his kind of manhood, so
Mm.
to speak. And what we've been able to do is connect him with another young dad, actually, who's had quite a similar journey and has also some um, quite significant side effects that would only kind of impact men. And what we do know is that men talk to men. You
Mm.
know, it's no good me as a woman sitting there and expecting men to talk to me about their
Sure.
problems. It's not going to happen. So we need to be really mindful of that. We need to be very flexible towards that. So we've joined these two men together for peer support that has just been revolutionary for them. It's just been, they've both said they've talked about things around their disease and outside of their disease that they've never spoken to anyone else about, that has now led them to want to start a men's group led by them, supported by our male CSO, community support officer, and being able to create a digital and physical environment, closed environment for other men impacted by the disease to talk to men. So really putting the men back into meningitis, led by the men who've been impacted by the disease. And for me, that just makes my heart sink. You know, that is should be exactly what we're about.
It sounds like it was meant to be.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, that's been a really excellent overview, Sue, of the important work that Meningitis Now do. So thank you so much. If anyone has any questions, you can contact me or you can contact Sue. Both of our contact details will be linked at the end of this soundbite. And there'll also be a link to the Meningitis Now website as well. All that's left for me to do is say thank you again, Sue. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and have a good afternoon.